Okay. Ois says the Sibbe von dem Chilik Hanal zwischen Teire und Chochmah is das was Teire is Chochmah to the Teire Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but is the emes la'amitai. So the reason for the difference, as mentioned above, between Teire and, let's say, conventional wisdom, is that Teire expresses Hashem in wisdom and will, and it's the ultimate truth. Umidas emes is in Yaniv Aziz Mavriach Min HaKatza LaKatza. Now, the truth is something that it penetrates everything from end to end. That's truth. Truth remains valid in all places, at all levels. When Teire is megalem emes farazach, and it says bleiben bagrenes im seichel adam. So when Teire reveals the truth of something, a matter, it cannot remain limited to the person's intellect. As er versteht, as der Indian is azay, aber in meisem pale fit sich in andere Efen, which means that he understands something is a certain way, but in actual practice he behaves differently. Nor, so what does Teire do? Es nimmt in built the ganze bis in meise rather of a meise he. See, truth means overtakes him entirely until and included in his actions. And on the contrary, my high time is ich doch looking in dem Weg, wie we can come to the Chochmah from Teire. For this reason, the way that a person achieves Teire wisdom differs from other methodology and other Chochmas. Mehem Kleimer Chazal, as a time for Razmat Keveg when the Halacha wie Beisilo, nicht wie Beishamai, Alpha P as Beishamai, Mechadet's phase, Mepnei Shneichen, Veluvin Hayu. Now, and still we find that by a person, if a person achieves Teire wisdom differs from Chachma, of other Chachmas. For Chachma, for example, the Chachamim say like the Teire, the halacha was decided according to Beis Hillel, Beishamai, even though we know Beishamai was much sharper, because they were agreeable and forbearing. So this is Mishnation Valuvin Hayu. They were agreeable for forbearing. The Indian for Kriyas Halacha, the Shayach to them was his Mechuded Yisro on aggressive Bar Seichel, was can therefore verstehen, the Halacha besser und tiefer, hat die Halacha gedauert sein, die Beishamai, was Mechadid Feis. Al-Cheda says the termination of Halacha seems contingent on the identity of the sharper and person who's smarter, who understands the halacha better and more deeply. So shouldn't the halacha be like Beis Shammai was sharper? But the Indian is the concept is like this: Kedei, so they gain them emes lamitif and Teire, was thus the Indian for halacha is nit maspek the Indian for sechalin. So in order to access the determination of truth, the halacha, intelligence alone is not enough.
This is a sharper.
Hmm?
Even though it's sharper,
right? So is nit maspek the Indian for sechalin. You can't only have intellect. Beisechel in sich in the tears and chesed and gvura. Ki do as das was Beis Hillel ten b'chal mekel Beishamai macham is what Beis Hillel is from chesed Beishamai from gvura. Because as we know, when it comes to intelligence, is not enough. Because intelligence does not only you can incline a person towards kindness and severity. As we know, Beis Hillel generally was mekel because Beis Hillel was rooted in the attribute of kindness. Beishamai ruled machmer because he was rooted in the spirit, in the attribute of gvura. When the and therefore Alpha as the Eigenschaft von Seichel is zu suchen und verstehen dem Emes von Azaz. So even though the characteristic of Seichel searches and understands and the underlying truth of everything, was der Fall can sich ein Mensch äußern und seinen Tiers und verstehen anders, wie es ist Mechayev, der Kav, zu welcher es nicht betevet zu das. Like this, it's also Shayach that a person could right. A person can divest himself of his own bias and understand different reasoning than what his natural leaning leads to. Like the Beis Hillel was more stringent, and Beishamai is some occasions Beis Hillel is machmer, sometimes Beishamai is mekel. Und deswegen verbleibt der Seichel in sein Zier. Nevertheless, the intellect remains limited by its own parameters of a mele can it allemal nemen the emes lamite from them davar muskel the air is And for this reason, it cannot always grasp the absolute truth of the subject matter as it exists on its own. Schaas mit dem Ingen Habitel. Was durch dem geht man heraus von der eigenen Beziehung, die es kann nicht akkuratisieren von Sichah Adam, to gain them Emes Lamite. But now, when a person approaches the level of Bittul, then the person can free himself of his own ego, and this way his intellectual analysis can lead him to the absolute truth. When the far as the halacha, Shinyani Emes Lamite, Nikba Gevaran, Vibesil, Feshanechem, Aluban Ayo, the Ina Bittul. And for this reason, the halacha is like Beisil, even though Beishamah was sharper, it's because they were agreeable and forbearing, which means that Beisil had the level of Bittul, more than Beishamah. Yes. The Inyan now is Eichel in them was Haskalasa Ashas is mit der Mishnah Memesai Kirishma and the Sima Ashas mit the Maimer Kal Shina Lachas B'Choyim. Now, this concept is Ramdas in the Gemara. The Gemara begins, as we know, the first Mishnah from when does one recite Shema in the evening, and then it concludes with the one who studies Halacha daily. The Sima Ashas is mit the Inyan from Limit Halachas. All the tachlis for Shachar V'Tayr from Teir is Asugish Maitza Libet Hilchasa. So the Grechin, the Waskana Valafal and Maisa, or Dafke in them, the Nixichois, Begilit, and Emes Lamite Shul from Teir. So the Gemara concludes by discussing the halachas, because the purpose of Teira debates is in order to reach conclusions according to halacha and to learn the correct conclusions on the practical halacha. This is because specifically the halacha manifests the absolute truth of Teira. Okay, there is the Shakavatari from Teira is all bringing a dem siyah for Kal Shina halachis. So in order to actually, what's the idea of Teira? Is to the idea of halachas. Was when having the akdam of aschala for Piyashma was Yanis Kabasa Mahashamayim. So therefore, we need to have the preface or the beginning of Shema, which signifies the idea of Kabbalah Mahashamayim, accepting the yoke of Kabbalah. While durch der Yira and Bittul zum Ratzin Alim Sal Kabbalah Mahashamayim is unlimited with the Bittul of Kabbalah. Because since the person studies Torah, so since he has here Bittul, so Ratzin Alien, so his limit is also with Bittul. A vase as an im is totally see der Yid was wird sich fern Leute sein gesagt in wird ton kfir Ratzin Alien, oder has verstanden Hepper. Was besagt dem steht der in der Yido Pachat zum Mechaber sein zum Ratzin Alien. Aber durch dem was der Adam is a Vatal sein Metzius, wird sein Sichah klit zum Emes Lamite und Teda on his Mechaber Allah. So the person issuing the psak, the halachic ruling, knows that whether or not the yid receiving the psak will follow Hashem will depend on the one who issues the ruling. For this reason, he experiences a sense of fear and yira to make sure that he's mechaben, he aligns to the ruling of Hashem. By the person becoming batal, he becomes a vehicle for the ultimate truth of Torah and correctly identifies the halacha. Okay, yud. A piece of it nicht verstehen. Was der tut auf a Shalom amiti zwischen die Chelkim, bis as is an alle Meide ich besichtigen zu Psagdin. On this basis, we can appreciate why Torah, is able to accomplish a true Shalom between people who argue, and not only that, but they also agree with their minds to the halachic ruling. That's a very Likkutei Sichos. Was wird genommen bloß mit sich allein, bleiben die Likkutei Sichos. Weil in Elmasel seine Freunde hier ist Lakan, also hat beide Deis haben on earth. Now, when there's various different opinions in a matter which is only based on intellect, so then you're going to have different opinions. And why? Because the realm of intellect, they're always going to be leaning to one side and to the other. So there's room for both views. Euch Chachma was Yishba Goyim versteht, als ein Meister Bepel darf sein ein Efen von Hanoga, weil man kann nicht der Losen am Masse von Isha Yoshabene Yase, weil seine Freund der Schönes und an ihnen ist man machriel regt es und alle Eichter mir darfen sich as a fearing. Even wisdom, as the Gemara says, there's wisdom amongst the Goyim, understands that in actual practice we have to follow the one viewpoint, because we cannot allow for society where everyone does what they want. So when there are differences regarding the issue, we basically reach the conclusion of the majority of views, and the minority also has to follow this conclusion. Thus is aber blaze an Oisveg, benegele pale. As der Miet verbaked, is der tun wieder reif. Is there a seichel over there, aber beiten sie nicht sehr minimum. Now, so in practical method, they conduct themselves. They follow the majority viewpoint. But in their minds and intellect, their opinion does not change. However, when it comes to Psak Din, it reveals the absolute truth of the matter. Was das ist der Emes Lamiti, was in Mavrich min HaKotzel HaKotzel Kanal, is das ausgehalten as in alle Madrigas. Now, says the halachic ruling is the absolute truth, which penetrates everything from end to end. The ruling is agreed upon and holds true in all levels. Is das ausgehalten in alle Madrigas, is kein Nachgeminit, sie des Seichels leit Kava Chesed oder leit Kava Kvura, legt sich ab wie der Emes Lamiti. So it doesn't make a difference if it's it doesn't make a difference whether the individual leans towards kindness or gvura. Allah perceives the absolute truth. In the Ribber of an Einer land Teda, durchgenommen mit Bittul Kabbalah Sel. So when a person possesses Bittul Kabbalah Sel, he studies Torah, was macht him for a kli to the Emes Lamite von Torah, which this makes him a vessel for absolute truth of Torah. Is when hert as the Allah is up, so when he hears that again, when a person doesn't have bittul, it's about ego, so that he's going to start arguing because he wants to be right, or because his ego is hurt. But if he's a person who has bittul and he wants the truth, so once he knows the Allah is not like his father, and he accepts it. Who lake zif up there in behesem of Psak. So because he has this bittul, he is able to, along with underlying reason that led to the halachic reason. Yud Aleph. Das is reich der Bier in dem Chiluk zwischen the drei Chadoshim, Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. This also explains the differences between the 3 months of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. Nisan is Chedesh Hadishin Echad, is der Chedesh von Tzis Mitzrayim, was is gekommen in Eif von Kanil Aliyah Malach Macham Macham Makadosh Baruch Hu Begolam. In ganzem Amayla. Und wie Balas die Gula ist gekommen, nicht als ihm Mitzad Gidin, nur Mitzad dem Eberstein, is in der Melchapzil nicht gewinnt, kein Chiluke, der Daiges bei Yidin, die Tzim Mitzrayim hat rumgenommen, Kol Yisrael Kechel. So Nisan is the first month when the Yidin left Mitzrayim, and the Exodus occurred, like we know the King of all kings revealed himself and redeemed him. So this redemption was initiated by the Eberster. Since the P'diya was not as a result of anything the Yidden did, but it was initiated by Hashem, so there's no differing levels amongst the Yidden from the outset. Mitzrayim, the Yidden left Mitzrayim, and encompassed all the Jews, people as one. Und der Inyan von Echad Achdus, bei Yitzis Mitzrayim hat sich Ares gesagt, und heim negedem Efen Yitzia Atzma, und heim negedem Matzef, Medagrafi, in dem Beis HaMatzia. This idea of oneness and unity, the context of Mitzrayim, was evident in how the Yidden left Mitzrayim, and also in the state of being and spiritual standing of the Jewish people at the time of Yitzia. Aleph. Sai der Zenuf Klein von alle Yidden von ganz Mitzrayim, Ken Ramses, und Sai erste Masse, die Etzem Yitzim Mitzrayim, und Ramses Sukkos, ist gewinn an Efen von, weil es Chamakan von Yisrael. Ewelo hat sich das aufgetan an der Kude von Zman Shalman Mischalkus, So first of all, the gathering of all the Yidden were all over the land of Mitzrayim to Ramses, as we know the first journey that the actual exodus from Mitzrayim, from Ramses to Sukkot, occurred such that Hashem said, I bore you on eagle's wings. So it happened instantly, above and beyond any form of division, as we know, in the blink of an eye. And Beis, which is a short amount of time. And Beis, the Teir, if Yidden, Beis, Yitzim Mitzrayim, what do we call them? We said the Yidden is called Tzivos Hashem, which is the army of Hashem. The Heibzach, when you say from that Tzav, is Kabbalah Sel. So what's the most important virtue in an army and a soldier is having Kabbalah Sel? Yischalkus is Shayich, and Seif. That's good. Velchas in talking Yischalkus zwischen India. Sorry. Velchas is in talking Yischalkus zwischen Ein Ish Tzavov, and that's right. There's no difference between one soldier and another. Yischalkus is Shayich and Seichel and Midas. Was jeder versteht und fühlt anders von Zweiten, aber in Kabbalah Sel than alle gleich. So when it comes to intellects, emotions, everybody has a different way they think, they feel differently. Kabbalah is expected equally from every soldier. The Balas die Yitzim Mitzrayim is gekommen Meilan an Eifen und was hat herumgenommen alle Jiden beschwört. Der Rebbe hat sich bei der Yitzim nicht gehört, die Schadlos von Jiden, die beschwört und keinen Levim Yisrael mit Yitzim besetzt. Nur der Hingen haben acht im Kabbalah zu Hashem. So since Yitzim Mitzrayim was initiated from the Eberster and encompassed the Yidden equally, so the division amongst the Yidden, 12 Shvatim, Kenan, Levim, Yisraelim, was not realized during Mitzrayim. Instead, at the time, only the unifying factor between them was the idea of Kabbalah Sin and Hashem. It says these Achtus Blazes Benegel. The union of Kabbalah was verbunden mit der Asiya, aber Eden bemohosem the Seichel Midas. Seine verblieben an Matzah von Ischalkes ist nur in an der Matzah von Nigla Leam haben sich die Chilugim nicht in Nigla, in der Gala nicht angesehen. But the Rebbe stayed thereby by Yisro, Sharab, and Kolel. Now, on the other hand, the Achdus is relevant only to Kabbalah, so the Jewish people, with their intellect and emotions, remain divided during the experience of the Eberster revealing to them. These differences were not revealed, not visible. Therefore, in this context, the pasuk says by Yisro, plural, as we said in Sif Gimel. Chedesh year, Chedesh Sheni is the Chedesh and Sudis for Saber. What's this advice if they're Aveda from Yidin B'Keichatzim? Now, the month of Iyar is the month of Surah Seher. This refers to Aveda the Yidin using their own energy. And them and the Yidin are Rappen. So, and this, the Yidin are many. It tells us if in Goli, in Fashidim Mandigas, Kodachal Fi Yoni. So the Yidin are many, and they are divided into many levels, each person according to his own identity, as we discussed. But enough, Punkt. Chedesh Sivan, Chedesh Hashishit, the Chedesh from Nanteda, was there for einig alle Yidin even von Leib Echad, as niet kokendik. Oif, die gelukkige ideeën van Yidin naar veel, maar dan is het maar macht er schon zwischen die alle ideeën de gele geelkes, bis es werden Hush von Leib Echad by Shalom and Miti. Now, the month of Sivan, which is the third month of the giving of the Torah unites all the Jewish people. One heart, notwithstanding differences of opinions and even complaints and conflict, the Torah fosters peace between the views to the extent that they were uniform in one heart, true peace.
So Nisan and ER are the same idea.
So Nisan is mitzad, there's an Achdus, but not the Emes Achdus. It's just like, I give an example always. Like right. Exactly. And Sivan is the idea of the Aveda, everybody's Aveda by itself, every person according to his Madrega. And Nisa and Sivan is the way that Teda brings everybody together. Okay.
Tzadamat.
Yeah.
Tzadamat.
Yeah. So, exactly. And if it is Mekon, now one of the lessons we can learn like this. Alter Rebbe's environment, Tanya has the Ifan, obviously, so there was the whole Nefesh Mishol and Megon of Avkotan. That Shirish Nashim Hashem Mefad is Kulim Asimis Ravech Lukaman. Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that obviously Yisrael has to include every Jewish soul, from the great to the small. After all, because all their common roots is in one Hashem, all Yidden are equal. Furthermore, they all have one Father. Kendach in der Fregen Bishlam haben er gehabt, so damit Shirish and Hashem Mefad und zweiten Yidden kennen, men bei ihm one and Azer so haben aber zu ihm. Aber Sachen Mamish, Beschasse, Besretzach wegen Azat zweiten Yidden. Was nicht nur ist, sei Shirish and Hashem bei ihm nicht mehr begonnen, nur ist ein Azam Matze, was die Chumis Aguf Shalei erstellt in Gaza, viel Eufen, oder Hashem, wie manchen bei ihm zu haben, zu anhaben, zu jenem in der Matze von was ist. So the question is this: if a person's relationship with another Yiddish soul, so you can expect love between them to be brotherly love. However, when it comes to another Yid whose soul, the root does not visibly illuminate his life and whose body's physicality, like if it covers up his soul's light due to the person's lowly spiritual level, how can the person be loved the way he is now? So the Rebbe says, if them is the Yidov, from Vayichan Sham Yisrael Edadar. So what's the lesson? The lesson is that Yidden camped there opposite the mountain. I was sharp off in this, but all the other campers, there were complaints and conflicts also. I mean, 30 seconds to lie out.